I'm so excited to be moderating this panel and a really great, interesting batch of filmmakers here to talk about it. I've seen all their films, and you should see them too. They're great. Yeah. Oh, I like the enthusiasm. So anyway, we're going to start off by letting them introduce themselves because they are the authorities on themselves. So yeah, everybody, just give us the quick bio, and also your origin story, and also let us know the first time that you saw a representation of yourself on screen, independent, studio, whatever. The first time you saw, those are my people, or maybe you didn't see it. So, all right, Suds, let's start with you. And let us know the name of your movie, too.
Okay, sure. Hi, I'm Sudhanshu. But I go by Suds, whichever you're comfy with. I was born, brought up in India, but I spent a lot of time in the States working there. I went to film school there, and the movie I've made is called Love, L-O-E-V, and it's in the Visions section. It's screening tonight, actually, at 7:30, and they've put us in the Alamo Lamar D, which is too huge. So if you come, I'll give you cookies.
Wow.
For sure, whichever kind. So it's my first film as a writer-director, and it's a very completely insane that this film got made. But this film is very me. And it's kind of dovetails to your question of when was the first time I saw myself. So I was born, brought up in India, where there's a tremendous film industry. So in a way, it wasn't hard for me to see Indians up on screen. But the more you grow up, the more you figure out who you are. And so the more you're able to sort of find the reasons why the person up on screen isn't you. And so in that way, it keeps changing and keeps shifting. And maybe the reason why I am in film is because I'm trying to put who I am up on screen to find others who identify with that.
Sweet. Great. Matthew?
Okay. Hey guys, my name is Matthew A. Cherry. I'm a filmmaker here. My film is called Nine Rides. We're in the narrative spotlight category. We screened twice already. We screen next on Tuesday at the Alamo Ritz. So I don't have cookies, but we got pins and flyers. No, I mean, I had a kind of crazy path as well. I actually was an athlete. I played sports all my life. Didn't even really know about independent film. Probably saw it more on the surface level. I like movies like Boomerang and Best Man and things like that I could relate to. And I actually played in the NFL for 3 years. Was an undrafted free agent. Played in 3 seasons, played with the Bengals, the Jaguars, the Ravens, and the Panthers. Retired in 2006, and then moving to LA and started as a PA. So kind of like learned the business, worked on a couple shows like Girlfriends and Heroes, and was lucky enough to see a lot of African-American directors, kind of working. Really tripped me out to see him on Heroes, because I was like, I get Girlfriends in the game because those are kind of like more black shows, but to see them giving black directors opportunity to do like a sci-fi show really was inspiring. And it was from there that I started doing music videos. I've done videos for Michelle Williams, Kelly Rowland and Beyonce, Bilal, Foreign Exchange, Kindred the Family Soul, Jasmine Sullivan, a lot of more like kind of soul singers, and just a wide range of web series, short films. I had a feature film that played here back in 2012 called The Last Fall. That's now streaming on Netflix, so please check that out if you can. And that was in the Visions category as well. And so this is my second feature and second time being out here. So, and the first time I would say I saw myself in film on an independent level, I would say was Barry Jenkins' film, Medicine for Melancholy. Just a very chill day in a life movie. I always thought that film had to be like action and people jumping out of airplanes and these multi-million-dollar budgets. And that was the first time I recall ever seeing a film with black people, and they were just there. You know what I mean? It was just relationships, and they were just hanging out, and it was just a very simple movie, but it just was so inspiring. And that was the first time I saw myself.
Hey everyone, I'm Logan Kivens. I have a feature here called Operator. And before I give you like the litany of places that I've been and fellowships that I've done, I just want to say for anyone out there who's a filmmaker, right before we all came out to do this panel, we were all talking about that moment that you have after you make something where you emotionally crash and you think you're completely worthless, and you feel like a
I
failure.
had that moment yesterday
Yeah.
all day.
So, like, we're starting by saying we've done all these things, but like we also
Yeah.
are artists who have like
Worthless.
a lot of self-loathing. So exactly.
Yes.
So just to put that out there. So my film Operator premiered Saturday night at the Ritz. My co-writer and wife Sharon Green is out there in the audience. And I've been making films since I was 15. I got into it when I was in high school. Got into a radio TV film class, started as a painter, and then found film, and just found like it just made more sense to me and was a better expression for what I wanted to be saying. Worked a lot in experimental film, went to undergrad at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, and then I got into doing projection design for theater. So it was kind of taking that experimental film, putting it on stage, and that's where I started to interact with a lot of actors. I started to use those actors in my films, and those films became more narrative, which brought me to CalArts and Los Angeles, and that's where I got my MFA. And I made a short film at CalArts called Sxsw, which is a very personal short film that was sort of a hybrid narrative experimental film. Went to a bunch of film festivals, and from there I got into something called the HBO DGA directing program, which is a year-long program where you shadow directors on different HBO shows, and they mentor you throughout that process, and they also pay you for that year, which is amazing because not a lot of them do, and it's super hard to learn and also, pay your rent. And during that year, I started writing Operator with Sharon, and then we were invited to the Sundance Screenwriters Lab. And so we developed the project through Sundance and through Film Independent, through some of their fellowship programs. And now we're here premiering it. So that's sort of the short version. I have to be honest about you asked the question of when I saw myself reflected for the first time, and I'll just tell you the first thing that popped in my head was Claire Danes and My So-Called Life. So.
I think it was really useful to see you guys connect the dots on how you got there. I feel like I rushed through that. And sometimes people think like you wake up one day, make a film, and then you show up, which is really not true at all. For me, that was film school 4 years at Ithaca College in upstate New York, and then going into the business side of things, working in domestic distribution in New York, then in foreign sales in LA, then doing at a production company, doing development production on TV shows, feature films, and then one day going, okay, I feel like I've procrastinated enough and found enough reasons not to do this. And so then I took all my relationships, just cut everything up, moved to India, and made a gay film in a country where they criminalized homosexuality. So that was my strategic.
Okay. I'm curious. I think the sort of our base assumption is that it's got to be better in independent film than it is in mainstream studio Hollywood filmmaking. But I'm curious, do you guys find that's the case? Or are you still walking into rooms every day and finding none of these people are like me? Do we want to? Let's just start. Matthew, let's start with you.
Well, we don't really go in rooms. We just go out and make our stuff. So I can't really speak on that. But I think the reason why we don't attempt to go in rooms is because we kind of already know what it's going to look like. Like I said, I've PA'd on hundreds of different projects, and for the most part, I'm always one of the few people of color, on the set. A lot of times, the only one. They call you bro when you're the only one. No, I mean, it's just. I just think, it's one thing to kind of complain about and say, why me? Oh, woe is me. And, the great thing about independent film is that if you have access to money, even if you don't have access to money, if you have access to resources, whether that be equipment or, friends that are down that own stuff, and you can kind of like barter and say, oh, man, I'll cook you dinner, man, if you let me get your camera. You know what I mean? Like, you can just go out there and make your stuff. And so, I haven't done the whole like sitting in rooms trying to get stuff made because I already know that's going to be an uphill battle. So our mentality was let's just go out here and create work and bring people to us, and hopefully people like it, and kind of go from there. So
Okay. Let's keep it orderly. Next.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, I mean, I think I have a similar answer, which is that in independent film, one of the major differences is that you don't have to go asking a lot of people for a lot of things. There's not a huge gap of sort of trust that you're asking people for. You're saying, I'm going to control and do a lot of this. Will you collaborate with me? will you do that as well? And so I think when the gap gets larger, when you go from different budget levels or you go, from independent to studio, then you're saying, please take a, $50 million risk on this idea that I'm bringing to you, and you're going to be confident in me and this project, versus like, here's the stepping stone trajectory, and this is the, a smaller step forward in terms of the amount of faith that you need to ask someone else to put onto you. And I think that there's a lot we can talk about in terms of why people have that faith or not, which probably has to do with whether or not they see themselves reflected in you, which is a thing that I think we all face going into rooms where we don't look like the people we're going into rooms with,
I think for me, I've gone into rooms much more before I was a filmmaker, and the big startling thing I realized is I don't see myself. You're in so many rooms with the typical white Jewish agent or the white Jewish executive, or there's a certain type. After a while, I started thinking I was that. Like, it took me a second. Like, someone will make a joke here or there, and suddenly you'll realize, oh, you're not like them at all, and they know it. And I would quickly brush it off and just move past. I don't like to sort of revel in it, so I don't even remember half of it. For me, the big revelation came when I realized that the fact that I'm different and the fact that I'm unique is a freaking gift. That is the greatest strength I have. What the hell would I do if I was a 29-year-old white male screenwriter living in West Hollywood trying to figure out how to get my film made? Now I get to go be exotic and different and talk about this past, and it's all the same shit. Like, I'm falling in love and falling out of love, but at least I can put some scenes with like Indian curry making or like, I don't know, right? So, I mean, the moment I realized that me being me is the greatest asset I have, I stopped looking at it as a disadvantage. So even when I moved to India, I wasn't like them. I thought in India I would be like, because I've worked on productions in Canada, in Germany, in UK, in LA certainly. And when I went to India, I thought, oh, thank God, I'm home now. But they were like, well, you look like us, you don't talk like us, and you want to be on time all the time, and you start sending emails at 9 a.m. What the hell is that? So even in India, it took me 6 months to realize, where the hell do I belong? Like, I'm not on... And so then you stop trying to fit in, and you start being yourself. Like, this is who I am. This is what I want to do. And for example, my problem in India was, I'm not Indian enough. So the films I wanted to make don't fit into the Bollywood format. They don't even fit into art house format, because I'm not going to be in a room, but when I send my application into Sundance Writing Lab, I am in a room. And there's a certain expectation that these festivals have from what an Indian art house film should be. They need to be about poverty or migration or like some kid dying and snotty noses. There's a poverty porn expectation that people have. That's just not the room I come from. In my room, there's Indians and they drive BMWs and they stay at the Four Seasons Hotel. Now, what the hell is a festival supposed to make of that? They're like, what are we championing here? Like bourgeois? Like third world bourgeois? We have enough first world bourgeois to deal with. We don't need to talk about your feelings there. So it's that kind of thing where you just have to own, I'm just going to do me, and then slowly people start finding you, and then you can celebrate that.
I think that's a really interesting point that I hope you guys can talk about some. Is there an expectation? Do you feel boxed in as to exactly what kind of material you should be putting out into the world? Do you feel a personal responsibility? And also this idea of, what is Sundance expecting from you? Stuff like that. I think let's start with you this time.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. But I don't think I ever really cater to that expectation, because I think it's a rolling expectation. I mean, I would imagine we all have 20 different self-identities that come out at different points, and we're asked to be different ones of those. And so I'm going to be interested in exploring what I'm interested in exploring at that moment. And so everyone that you encounter, film or not, is going to have an expectation of that. And I just have to find the people who are relating to what I want to express at that time. And so, yeah, but there's also a burden. I think there's a burden to tell underrepresented stories, and when you're somebody who has an ability to tell those stories, if an audience member or somebody sees themselves reflected in you, they're going to be like, why aren't you telling my story? But it's because I'm telling my story. And I've been thinking a lot, and this is like not soundbitey and not uncomplicated, but I've been thinking a lot about just like the burden of telling everybody's story. It's like,
Yep.
I want, like, you're a chef, but you should make airplane food that caters to everybody. Like, no, I'm not United Airlines. Like, I want to be like.
There's your soundbite.
No, but that just waters down the experience. And I think something that what you were saying made me think is it's about specificity, and it's about, there's this buzzword of authenticity, but I think that can also be said with specificity, that can be said with vulnerability. Like, I think you can find a commonality with anybody, even people who you don't look like, if you can find that vulnerable connection. So I believe in films that are really specific and art that's really specific, because I think that becomes more universal. But I do think that there's a burden to create an outward universality, which is a little bit antithetical to art making.
Yeah. For sure. As an African American filmmaker, we have to be way more conscious of just, everything. Colorism. Okay, if this love interest is, light skin compared to this dark skin male lead, okay, how's that going to be perceived? It's just like a lot of things that I think a lot of other filmmakers don't have to like even worry about. But I do think that but it's great. I think we're kind of forced to give more care and attention to detail with kind of these things. Particularly with our storytelling, like we a little bit more aware if things are stereotypical. Okay, let's not cast it that way, or let's not write it that way. And so, but there's definitely a burden. But I think that. I think every first-time filmmaker, we all go through it. If you are able to make a film, you're already kind of in this elite group of people who have been able to do it. And so we all think, we're the shit or whatever. And like, oh, well, I can get into Sundance. You didn't make it? Okay, that ain't me. I'm going to be all right. And then and then when it doesn't happen, you're like, oh, my God, I'm the worst person ever. Like, And, I think we all just have to kind of go through it and just kind of work through that in our own way. But at the end of the day, it's not about what a critic says, because a lot of them are older white males. Like, okay, I can't expect a 50-year-old white male critic to relate to a story about a young 24-year-old black. Like, if you do, cool, because we want our stories to have these universal themes. But you can't do this art seeking like outside approval, because you're going to be chasing a moving target. It always is different. It's always changing. And at the end of the day, like, you want people to come up to you and say, man, like, this movie really touched me. Like, I saw myself in that. And to me, that's the true gift. You know what I mean? Like, I'd prefer, fan feedback over a critic or, some festival who, because everybody has their agenda. You know what I mean? They're trying to fulfill quotas, and, they want to, this theme is more about the, the outworldly thing and whatever. So you just can't do your work like that. You just got to do what's true to you. It'll be authentic. And people can sense when you're trying to do something that's not real, and you're trying to chase, oh, okay, well, this year, I'm going to do a movie that's kind of like, and it's like, dude, like, that's not your life. You can't relate to it, and it's just coming across on the surface. So, I think it's a burden, but I think we all have to just kind of embrace who we really are and just tell our stories from our unique perspectives, and that way we'll have a lot of different type of stories as opposed to just everybody trying to, do the same thing.
Does anybody want to ask any questions? I assume we've got some filmmakers in the audience. If anybody wants to hop in anytime, okay, well, we'll keep going.
Sweet.
I'm really curious about, like I said, I think we've probably got some young filmmakers here. If you guys want to talk to them about, how you found a support system, grants, how you made these movies on super low budgets. I know you have a really interesting technology edge to your story. So yeah, just kind of a catch-all suds. I think we're starting with you this time.
My film's got no soft money. India has no facilities for any kind of grants or all that stuff. There's too many films. We make about 1,300 a year. I think the government's probably going to start a program which discourages filmmakers from making films. There's not enough Fridays. I've never gotten my script into anything. There's been turned down multiple times from all the labs. So for those of you out there getting turned down, get over it. It's okay. Just make your film. It's the best thing to do. which is why it's insane that I'm sitting here at South by Southwest so intimidated by the things they've done before. I've applied to that HBO thing and gotten turned down like twice, I think.
I did too.
Yeah, right.
So it's all good.
And I've got like friends at HBO. So I was literally like, what is this? and then the Sundance Writing Lab, which like I'm like, Jesus, like 4 times. So it's just, I feel like the best thing you can do is just make your film, because some people are better at communicating what their film's about on the script stage. For me, like my script is like weird, and then the film got made and everybody's like, "Ugh," and I'm like, where were you guys before this? So it's just really about, for that unique thing, doing what you want to do. On my film, this one, we did a bit of crowdfunding to get the audience going. We did a whole bunch of like friends and family, private equity, just sort of bootstrapping it together. The thing that helped me the most was the short film I made before this film. That really was useful in getting crew on board and in getting money and people to take you seriously, actors. Because you can ask someone to work for free, but if they know that you're going to do something good, the chances of getting a yes are higher. So Kick-Ass short film is super useful. So that it's kind of just obvious sort of step by step. Like I didn't, for me the script to production process was about 9 months. I just don't have patience. Like I can't do it.
I feel you.
Yeah, I get depressed like 3 days of like waiting. So.
Well, Matthew can beat the turnaround.
Oh. No. Yeah, I think so our thing was, and definitely to piggyback on what he's saying, definitely with actors, with filmmakers, people respond to things that are already done. It's way too easy to have access to equipment now. You can shoot something on a 5D, or iPhone, et.cetera. And so it's like, why would you expect somebody to like fund an idea when they're literally, you have all these television networks, there's so much content out here. And so anytime you can shoot a short film or a web series or a music video, whatever, to kind of prove that you're a storyteller, it always helps, because people are visual. And it's just, a lot of people don't even want to, I would send scripts to people expecting them to read it that night and give me feedback the next day. And people, a month later, oh, I'm sorry, man, I'm still on page 10. Like, damn, because it's like reading a book almost, 120.
They did not get to page 10. Don't even know it. You don't even email it, and they're like lying.
Right. So, so it's just easier when you can like kind of show stuff. But like our process, we were actually literally in pre-production on another film. We were supposed to go the weekend of October 23rd. In like 3 days before we were supposed to shoot, one of our lead actresses ended up booking like this huge HBO show. And like, so the whole production was like gonna go away. And having gone through the festival process, I was like, oh man, like this was gonna be in South by this year. Like, it's like I can't wait to, like you, I'm too impatient. I was like, I cannot wait to 2017. I don't even know what that looks like. I'm in 2015 right now. Like, what? Submit in 2017? I can't even do it. And so, we were just like scrambling. I was like, all right, gotta think of something else, gotta come up with another idea. And because we were gonna still try to like do the other project later with the same actress. And so I had recently seen this film with Tom Hardy called Lock. And it all took place in the car, but it was all like these different phone conversations. And I was like, and then I also recently saw Tangerine that shot on iPhones. And I was just like, man, I really wanna do something on the phone. And I also really would like to try to figure something out that takes place in the car, because it's a very kind of like manageable location. We don't have a lot of money, and hopefully I can like detour our investors to kind of invest in this new idea. And so I just like literally that weekend we were supposed to shoot, I just like locked myself in a room and I wrote this like 20-page scriptment or outline for this project, which is the film that's at the festival today, called 9 Rides. And it was about an Uber driver who kind of goes through this experience of these 9 different groups of people who kind of interact with him while he's kind of going through like a personal life crisis. And the turnaround was just so insane. And my producer, Jerome Caldwell, was in the audience. Like, we knew the new iPhone Sxsw was going to shoot in 4K. And so, I shot a short film a couple years back and on the Red, and I just remember how much of a huge deal shooting in 4K was. And I was like, damn, this new phone is about to do this? Like, that's a game changer. And so we really wanted to try to be the first to kind of shoot with that as well. And so it just all came together really fast. But the main reason why we did it was because we really wanted to just prove to underrepresented groups and filmmakers of color and people that don't have access to expensive equipment like Alexa cameras and Red cameras, because literally, you spend $10,000 just renting a camera for a 2 or 3 week shoot. You know what I mean? And my thing was like, if we can prove that we can get name talent, premiere at a major festival, and it actually looks good, like hopefully this young kid who's in the Midwest somewhere who aspires to be a filmmaker and has an iPhone that his parents bought him can be like, oh wow, I can tell my story too. Because a lot of times when we don't see ourselves doing the work, it's hard to relate. So that was our biggest thing, and we just wanted to like kind of prove that it could be done, but through the lens of a filmmaker of color, so it could be a little bit more relatable. But our turnaround time was crazy. We shot the weekend of Thanksgiving. I had a film play here back in 2012, so Janet kind of gave me a little love on the extension, but literally like edited in like 2 or 3 weeks, submitted it like around Christmas, and got word back a couple weeks later that they dug it. So yeah, I mean it was a super fast process, but I just say that to say it doesn't matter what you shoot on, like as long as you have a good story and it's relatable and it's personable and it's almost like therapy in a way. You know what I mean? When you're doing these films, because you kind of work through your own issues, kind of through these different characters, and so it was a great process. Sorry,
I'm worthless.
You're not.
That was your therapy. That's the result of your therapy. Okay, so I did the HBO DGA directing program, and I did
Enough
the Sundance
already.
Screenwriters
Enough
Lab.
already.
Was turned
And
down
my
for
film
both.
took 5 years to make, and you guys made it in
Oh.
like 2 months. So we
Burn.
all have pain,
Right.
okay?
Exactly.
But so to answer the question of like specific advice, and I think you guys are saying a lot of this as well. I did have to go into a lot of rooms for this film. I'd funded and made all of my other films before. This is the first feature, but I've made over 50 shorts. The most
50?
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm not 15 anymore, and that's
Not
when I
anymore.
started.
Yeah.
And so the film before that was a half-an-hour short film that I made for $16,000, which was funded by student loans because it was my thesis film. And this was a much bigger leap and not something that I could afford to pay for, so I had to go get a lot of people on board. And I would get these questions about, like, what's your vision? And I'm like, I wrote it down. Like,
Read the script.
and you read it. Like, didn't you?
That's amazing.
Did you not read it? And I'd get kind of frustrated, like, what are you asking me? Until finally it hit me, like, oh my God, if they knew, I wouldn't have a job. Like, my job is to know how to interpret this thing that I wrote down or this thing that somebody else wrote down. And my job is also to convince them that I know how to do that and to show them what is in my mind. So I think I go into a lot of situations thinking like, oh, you already know all that stuff, and you're better than me, or you're at most equal to me, or I'm working on that. Totally different now, but that is, I will tell you how I approached a lot of it. And so therefore I thought, you see it just the way that I see it, you can see what I'm envisioning, but that's not true. And so I think a lot of the advice you guys are giving about like make a short film, make a lookbook, make a website, pull photos from art books or pieces of art, or just take photographs and be like, this is a feeling. I like the feeling that this photograph gives me of this room, the way that the light looks in it. That's how I want these particular scenes or this character to feel like. That's really evocative to other people. It really helps ground it. I mean, I hate doing like film comparisons. Like, I want it to feel like this meets this, and like I basically never do that. But I think it is helpful to talk about like what kinds of films you like and what you respond to and what your favorite things are, because when people ask this other super vague question about like what's the tone, like I hate that too. But like, it's because they want to know like, there's so much possibility. How are you narrowing that possibility for your voice and what you're seeing? Please help give me information so that I can see it more like you're seeing it, so that I can be in this conversation with you. So I think the more examples of that stuff that you can give to people, the better chance you'll have to convey to them how you want to do it. Because the whole job is about, if you're going to a level where you want to get people to help you, even if it's collaborators who aren't giving you money, they're just jumping on your project, the whole job of being a director is convincing other people that you can do it and that what you're going to do is cool, and that I believe also that they have a space in that. Like, I really believe that we should collaborate with people and benefit from that collaboration by letting those people be their own artists and really like have a voice in your project. Your job is to manage those voices, but so that's my strongest advice is to go forward, just don't shy away from making those documents. it's really helpful. It might seem stupid to you because you're like, I've said this a million times, but they don't know that, and that they genuinely want to help you and they want to see that so that they can help you.
And one last thing too. I mean, everybody's path is different. Just because you have a friend that went through the labs and now is doing studio features, like that's probably the biggest thing that can mess you up as a filmmaker, is trying to compare your journey to other filmmakers' journeys. They're literally all different. Just because you did a short doesn't mean that it's gonna happen for you. Just because you did a music video, so all you have to do is like figure out within your life the path that is best for you. Use the resources that you have and kind of do it. I mean, she got in labs, we didn't. I mean, I've applied to a gang of director fellowship programs, but it didn't work. But at the end of the day, we still have to do the work. If you go to film school,
we're all right here at the same time.
Exactly,
so.
we're all here. You still have to make a film. You go to film school, you still have to make a movie. You don't go to film school, you still have to make a movie. So at the end of the day, no matter what path it is that you take or who you know or who you don't know, we still have to start at the same starting line and make a project. So.
I'm learning a lot just listening to you guys. It's like reinforces some of the things that you start to not pay attention to. So I know we all talked about this before we got here. We're honestly here for you guys. If there's questions you have that you're not asking, like, we're not that smart. It's really here for you. Please, like, let's get a discussion going. I think that'll be way more fun.
And there is a hand. However, I was told that I have to ask you to use the microphone, which is right behind you. If you don't mind, just it's so close. Thank you. And yeah, after this, guys, please go ahead and get in line and ask questions.
Oh my God.
They're here. They are amazing resources for you guys.
There's actually people here. I didn't know that.
I thought it was just
That was the rehearsal.
Okay, what's your question?
I was just wondering if your identities played into how you financed the film. I know I just worked on a film where the director was a Nigerian American, and he specifically used that as leverage for finding financing. But it can also be a hindrance what your identity is for the kind of people who actually have money and are financing films. So I just wanted to have a little conversation about that and how long it took you to finance your films.
Who wants to
It's
start?
me? Okay. Well, I think, thank God for, the Kickstarters and the Indiegogos, you know what I mean? I think that really kind of democratizes fundraising because you're able to really rally your supporters. Again, everybody's different, but I really do encourage filmmakers to, be on social media, share your journey. I think that's part of the really big reason why I've been able to get a lot of movies made, or not a lot of movies, but a lot of projects made, is because I'm able to kind of reach back out to my supporters and say, hey, we about to do this movie, we're about to premiere at this festival, we need a little bit of help getting it finished, and they kind of answer that call to action. Just like anything else, I think you have to pull from your resources and people that you know, and if you have friends that are, personally, I used to play in the NFL, so I have friends that used to play. So you got to be tricky with it because you don't want to have people thinking that you're coming at them a certain way. But the thing I've learned more than anything is that people want to help people that are helping themselves. And if it's an already moving train and you already have shot a trailer or you already shot the movie and now you're crowdfunding right before your premiere, people are way more apt to get involved if they already see it happening and they feel like they're about to miss out, as opposed to this is just an idea and I don't know, and I need $1 million, and they'll be like, well, I'm not about to fund your dream, dude, but if you already are already moving and dude, this is gonna happen with or without you, I think that kind of encourages people to kind of give more and be more involved.
That's another word I hate, momentum.
This
You
is
got a lot of
totally true.
momentum.
Right.
It's like
What are
they
these
want to
words?
help
What
when
does it
you
mean?
kind of don't need,
Right.
everybody wants to be the person that gets you to the, oh, you only need X dollars to hit your goal. Now I'm going to take my credit card. I'm like, when we were at 50% and I was curled up in a ball in my room, maybe then would have been nice. Except you called me out saying, hey, you want to have drinks? And I'm like, no, I don't have $10. But I know totally what you mean. And when it comes to identity, so I've made a film, again, which is sort of a romance between two men in India. So there were definitely rooms I found myself in which I knew were homophobic. So it became a film about friendship, right? And I'm just a regular dude. And then there were rooms which I knew were gay friendly, so I was more friendly. So, I mean, you've only got you. You've only got you. There's no one out there swooping in to save there's no NFL, there's no one out there.
Right.
You know, there's the co-writing wife sometimes. But I'm saying my actor is here from India in this room. It's his first time in the States. He's at South by. He's sitting right there.
Hey.
He's just like, he's like a Bollywood star man that I had to convince to be in the movie. And again, it's just got me. It's just me. I have to do what I need to do to get him to say yes, which sometimes means, you know, just laying it down, saying, there's no fruit plate, there's no big vanity van, there's not going to be the spot boy holding your umbrella, and, you know, that's just not. Like, you have to do that shit, and it's a culture shock, but, like, I know you're I mean, I can't explain to you the way Bollywood films are shot. Like, when I told my line producer, I want 30 people on unit, period.
Right.
Like, they did not understand that. They were like, well, there's like 85 at least. And I'm like, well, how are we going to feed the 85 people? Right. So all of it, but you just have you. Like, you need to do whatever you need to do. And ironically, the moment you accept that you're super alone and just by yourself, suddenly everyone shows up. Right?
Truth.
I think everybody's afraid.
Yeah.
Everybody you're asking for help and asking for money of is afraid. And you are also afraid.
Right.
And I think that's where like momentum and, you know, moving train and all that stuff comes from, is they're like, I don't want to make a bad choice. I don't want to be wrong. I'm scared. Please convince me to not be scared. And then you have to be like, however you want to do that. And some people are like, bravado and confidence. And like, that's a way that you can do that.
Faking it.
Yeah. And I think for me, that became my interpretation of momentum. And what you guys are talking about is like, you have to convince people that it's happening so that they don't have to be afraid that it's not going to happen, so that they will help you. And I would love to ask your actor the same question. Like, how did your identity convince him? Why did you do the film? I mean,
Shiv, there's a mic right there. Go for it. Don't be too honest.
And let them know when it screens, too.
Yeah, we've still got 2 screenings to go, so I think I'm going to be a little diplomatic. No, actually, it just so happened that the 2 of us had gone to the same school together, but we never really knew each other in school. And he had been working in the States for a while, and when he came back to Bombay, he got in touch with me and met me for a cup of coffee, and he's like, hey man, I went to the same school as you, and I was like, all right, oh, really, okay, and he's like, guess what, I'm a filmmaker, and I was like, good, great, good for you, and
Basically saying, get out of here.
yeah, because the thing was that he caught me just on my way to the gym, so I had no idea what he wanted from me. And then, so we were like chatting for about 10 minutes, and then he's like, you know, I've got a script I want you to read. I was like, sure, why not? You know, I love reading material. That's one thing in India which we really, as actors, which we really are deprived of, is good content. Because I think there are a couple of schools of thought in India where you have people who write scripts in 2 days, or you also have people who actually spend six months. But the probability of people spending those 6 months on a script and the content turning out to be really good is much lesser. So you've got these really quick action kind of guys who are like, sir, we've got this film for you, you know, we've got this film for you, and it turns out to be real bogus most of the time. So after the meeting with him, I didn't hear from him. So then I called him 2 weeks later. I was like, hey man, what's up with that script? So he's like, oh, I met you and I didn't think you were right for the part. So, so I was like, is it like, am I playing an Asian guy in it, or am I like an old guy, or is it like, what is it? He said, no, you're just not right for the part. So I had no idea what the part was. And now suddenly I've got myself thinking, where am I lacking? And so, and then
so
began.
You negged on him.
Then began a
Jedi mind trick.
No, he's a big deal. So I didn't know who he was. So I'm just like, yeah, sure. Why don't I call him up and sit him down? And then casting directors were like, you've been here a week. He's a star. He's not going to do this film. He's not going to play gay. His whole career's over. It's not going to happen. Stop wasting your time. Stop wasting his time. So I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, but that's the thing. So essentially what happened was I had to track him down, kind of beat him to death and say, I want to do this. What is the film about? Just tell me what the damn film is about. So finally I get him to come and narrate the film to me. And the thing is, in my country, the problem with the portrayal of LGBT community vis-a-vis film is that it's pretty sensational. And I don't think sensationalism is always necessary. I think sometimes the simpler and more truthful stories need to be told. And what really kind of spoke to me about his script was that it was bereft of any sensationalism, any agenda. I mean, currently we are in a political climate in my country where there's a Supreme Court ruling called Section 377, which criminalizes homosexuality. So it's illegal to be gay, but it's legal to be transgender in my country currently. So that's pretty interesting. And when his script came to me, his script was just a love story. It did not matter about the gender of the characters in the film. You could literally pick up, you could change them around, make them men or women or whatever you want. And that's what I loved about his film. It just was a love story. And I think those kind of stories needed to be told. So for me, I didn't even get into the aspect of a gay film or my career being over. It was just that I've got this amazing opportunity. It was at that point, it was a film being made for his DVD collection in his living room. And we knew that. And we knew
No
that.
one wants to release.
No one wants to release it. We knew that. But I had to do it because, like he rightly said, and all of you have been saying, it's good to have a kind of a bouquet of work before, like a short, or you just have some stuff so people can, it's a visual meeting, people can see. So I'd seen his short. It was excellent, technologically, very, very savvy. So I knew this guy can handle the technology associated with film. It did not matter to me that he's a first-time director. It was just that his script was pretty on point. He knew what he was talking about. So there you go. It's just, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how successful you become. Each film is a leap of faith, and I think all of you know that. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that was it for me.
Cool. Awesome,
Thank you.
man. Tell them when it's screening.
Do you have a question?
Yeah. Hi. Thank you all for the work that you do and for the stories that you're telling. It's just so important. I feel like the two sort of major paradigm shifts that we've seen in indie film over the past decade or so, which you've sort of touched on both. One is the availability of technology for shooting and for editing. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm old enough to remember when, like, you couldn't get into a major festival if your film was shot on video or if you didn't have a print for them to run. Mm-hmm. And then also, Mark, what you mentioned, the sort of burst of content providers of places where work can be seen, starting with YouTube in 2005 and on forward. My question is, does that put you in a position now where it's easier to get the work done and it's easier to find a place for it, but there's so much of it that it's harder to get your work seen, particularly if you're telling inclusive stories and you're trying to reach an underrepresented audience?
We were talking about this before. I think the biggest revelation I had is that the thing I was shying away from is my unique identity happens to also be my greatest asset. And the same is true for all of us. Make no mistake, if I had made a regular film with, like, two people in Hollywood falling in love or whatever, in my opinion, it would have been 100 times harder for me to get this film seen. It's because I've made this love story between two men, set in India, where it's the more specific I've gotten, the more I thought it was unlikely the film would ever get made or seen, but that has turned out to be the greatest asset. It's the reason why BBC was sitting with us doing this whole televised interview. And I'm like, what? We shouldn't even be finished in production. What are we doing? Right. I think this is where also diversity comes into play. It is an asset. Yep. We are lucky that we are unique, and that is going to be the reason why the films we made get seen.
Yeah, no. As you know, again, I can only speak to my unique experience, but as an African American filmmaker, back in 2012, I mean, literally, I was told that we had the biggest sale out of South by in terms of, I guess, advance, and it was really just kind of more so because we were a black film. We had a very specific kind of outlet to where our film can land, your BETs, your TV1s. You got to think about this. So, you're a white filmmaker, you do a movie about some skateboard dudes, and, they're in their late 20s. Where's it going to land on television? Is it going to be on TBS? Is it going to be on, it's not HBO because it's not a huge studio movie. It's not going to be TNT. Like, where's it going to play? Probably IFC, probably like a smaller Sundance channel or something. And so sometimes with your uniqueness, which is a thing that sometimes we shy away from, that actually could be our biggest asset. And because indie film is there's so much content, literally, being unique, being diverse, being an African-American filmmaker, LGBT, we have very unique platforms where our work can be kind of showcased and seen, and sometimes that actually is the thing that ends up being our biggest, kind of asset and everything. And so, I think it's actually an advantage in a lot of ways. and then, you know, sometimes the bar isn't as high in terms of, you know, oh man, they didn't do 30 million at the opening weekend. You know, that's crazy. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, I think that it actually kind of helps in certain ways.
I definitely feel like my experience with this film, because I did have to, you know, get over that hump of convincing people to help me and give me money and convincing people that I could, you know, do right by that. I started to get the feeling that with the technology of the medium being so much more accessible, it just made the pool of entry, the entry is easier and the pool is larger for that first step. So I think it used to be that the technology made that first step harder to get to, so the initial pool is smaller. What happens after that step, if you have to then start to convince people to give you money and support your project, it becomes a lot more faith-based. It becomes a lot more intangible, right? Which is why it's good to make these tangible documents, and why your actor said, you know, that he saw certain things in your film. Like you can get a sense of, can I be confident in somebody when I see that? But then you're just dealing with this intangible, you know, do I have faith in you, do I believe in you thing? And that, I think, is where a lot of like bias and these diversity issues come into it. And you can't always control that. So I would just, you know, in my like millions of moments of frustration, some of them had to do with thinking like the pool is so oversaturated. People think I'm just another person who has no experience in this, hasn't ever done, you know, like, and if I'm expressing confidence, maybe that doesn't have anything to back it up, even though it does. So yeah, that's my experience to your question.
Hi.
Hey guys, as a, you know, born white male, nobody chooses what you're going to be when you're born, and someone who, you know, wants to tell stories, you know, for a living, you know, I feel like I have to find ways to maybe insert diversity into stories, right? Because if I'm thinking of a story in my head, you know, I think we all think of ourselves, or, you know, the picture of ourselves in our mind as
Right.
like the character in our mind, and then so I have to sort of, you know, veer away from that. And so I wonder what you guys think about, you know, if I'm trying to tell a story, and I do insert, you know, maybe gender or race into it, if it's enough to just put them there and continue to tell the story, I don't think so, because then I don't know if it's true to them, to
Well,
whoever that character is.
Why are you doing it, would be the question. If you're doing it because you want to capitalize on a moment where people are talking about diversity, then that's a terrible reason, because it has nothing to do with the art that you're making. You know, and that's, I think, what we're all saying about being specific and being authentic, and you can also be specific and authentic.
Now, I suspect you're actually super unique, super diverse already.
Right.
Yeah,
It's just
exactly.
really, I mean, race is the last. I mean, literally, I wrote this movie being an Indian surrounded by a sea of Indians, like a lot of Indians. I could have felt really homogenized, you know? I could have
Right.
felt really ordinary, like I'm one of a billion everywhere I look. But I think that diversity is actually way, way, way deep inside. Like, you know, are you going to make No Experience Necessary, or are you going to make Clerks, or are you going to make, you know, Sex Lies, or I don't know what that, like, are you a geek, or are you a rich person, or a poor person, or I mean, you have to have a very specific point of view in life, and you have to have a very specific thing that you want to say. If you have those two things, you're already really diverse. I think the superficial aspects of diversity,
Right.
whatever.
Yeah, it's not just black. Yeah, it's not just black and white. You know, it's not just race. It's literally about your unique perspective. So
I can't wear that yellow shirt. Like I couldn't pull it off.
Right.
You know, that's what makes you. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like you already have a unique point of view on what this is. And by the way, how unique is it that you feel like my story is not going to be sort of diverse, right? Like I totally identify with that. I'm like, what do you do as a white male sitting in this panel going, well, they've got a back door, man. I have to compete with like Tom Cruise movies. Like, what do I do? You know, but I think that's, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that if you know who your characters are and the story that you want to tell, and then it doesn't matter whether or not they are diverse,
Yeah.
sure. like then absolutely, if you would like to add diversity in there, then that's just helping
That's
broaden.
more what I was
Yeah.
struggling with.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I could cast Kerry Washington in anything, I would.
Of course.
Just to hang with her. I don't care about that.
Just tell her you don't want her in your movie, and then she'll be in your movie apparently.
Right. She'll be chasing you.
I do not want Kerry Washington.
She's in the back, actually.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions? I have one. I'm curious about, and I know you've got one feature film under your belt, but you guys are on your first feature film, so I'm not sure how much you'll be able to speak to this. But I'm curious about your strategy for finding an audience, both one that is, sort of the community that you've come out of, and also a much broader one, and that includes finding film societies, finding how are you using social media? Right. How are you reaching out to the media? Are you finding the media is responsive to your stories? So that's like 8 questions in one. Yeah.
So it's more about the.
Once you've made your movie, how do you find an audience?
Okay. Yeah. Again, every movie is different. There's 100 ways to cut the cake or whatever. But I think it really just kind of starts with, okay, if I'm doing this film, I think the biggest basis is, okay, who is my own personal kind of support system, whether that be friends, family, people you went to school with, whatever, and have them spread the word. What is your film about? My first movie was about kind of loosely based off of my life. I was an NFL player, played 3 years, did the average thing where they say, average career is 3 years, retired with not a lot of money. And, my movie was about that. It was about, a retired NFL player who moves back home, is broke and is trying to figure out the rest of his life. And so, a lot of our kind of targets was like the sports community, a lot of fellow athletes, people that were fans of, sports and football and could kind of relate to that personal story. So I think you kind of start with we are kind of, I think aware of who our target audience is in terms of, okay, these are the people I kind of think would really dig this movie. And so you kind of try to target specific media outlets that kind of deal with that. As an African-American filmmaker, you have IndieWire, so you have Shadow and Act, you have, blackfilm.com, there are a lot of, you have the blogs, the Bossops, the YBFs, et cetera, et cetera. So we try to strategically kind of reach out to a lot of, Essence, Ebony Magazine, you try to specifically kind of target the different media outlets that cover black film, that cover sports projects, and just people that have shown love and kind of supported you already. I'm very active on social media, actually periscoping right now. But it all helps, you know what I mean? They're feeling involved in the process, and on the next film, they'll be like, oh, wow, I remember when he was casting. I remember when he was shooting. Oh, they did the Kickstarter. I got to support because, I remember when it was just an idea and now it's real. You know what I mean? And it just all helps to kind of help build an audience. And we've had a lot of media kind of reach out simply because they've been a part of the process of, us kind of creating our story. So I think it's just being strategic. You literally don't have to have a lot of money to do it. It's really about personal relationships. We all know somebody who knows somebody. You know what I mean? Like if we're trying to get the New York Times connect, just literally look in your phone. Okay, you went to school with somebody. You know what I mean? And it's really about assessing people. This is kind of my angle. Okay, they're from Illinois. Okay, I'm from Chicago. Okay, that's where we can kind of connect on. Oh, he's a fan of the NFL. Okay, I can come at them at that angle. And you just have to kind of assess your own personality, your own relationships, and how to make it relatable to kind of grow it. Because at the end of the day, it's all grassroots, and I don't think any of us expect to be in 1,000, screens and make $1 million, $100 million, with our features. They're all kind of niche, smaller films, and it's also about managing expectations. You can't go into this expecting to be the next Ryan Coogler or to be the next, Brie Larson or, you know what I mean? Because everybody's path is different, and if you have those expectations managed, if something good happens, you'll be happy.
I think with the media, the one thing I can contribute on, I think when we make our first films, we're so grateful. Sometimes you have to remind yourself, okay, all right, great. Grateful's great. Now you have to move past grateful into being proactive and actually doing something about it. Especially with the media, it's a conversation. It's not a gift. It's not someone grants you an interview or they agree to talk about it. Of course, I'm excited. but I've learned to be a little bit more careful. I've learned to be a little bit more strategic. The other person also has a very busy day, a lot of things going on, and there's always the instinct to just sort of do the standard issue thing and get it over with. So I think it's up to you to shape the story. It's up to you to figure out what the specific message of this particular article is. It doesn't help anyone to have 70 things which all say the same thing. I think so you have to kind of figure out how to tell your story bit by bit. It's almost like there's a relationship between each piece that comes out and how does it sort of, and sometimes that means telling a journalist, no, that's not what I want, or this isn't a piece I want, or it doesn't quite sit there. And surprisingly, instead of getting offended, they actually pay attention. They suddenly wake up going, oh, wait, you don't want me to do the standard issue stuff that, just getting through my day, plugging my things. Social media is something I have a much harder time with. I'm definitely learning it, including from, for example, my actor who's so good at knowing exactly when to post it and what to do about it. And I feel like I'm kind of shouting into a closed room and it's just all echoing among the same people. So I'm just constantly scared that they're going to block me.
I just want to. These are all lies. He's so good at social media that we saw Rami Malek at the Driscoll. So he literally grabbed him and said, "Love film meets Rami Malek." All the while, my German producer kept calling him Dr. Robert.
So this is what I mean. I'm learning. I've got actors around me who tell me like these kind of things affect media back home. Right. So I'm figuring out, but I'm constantly scared that. My mom's okay with it, but other than that, people must be like, oh my God already, Jesus, I'll see the film when it gets out. Like, stop posting one more message.
Yeah, I mean, if I could live in a small room and never leave it and not talk to other people, I'd be like, okay, I'm safe, it's good. So I'm I'm not into self-advertisement, but you have to be. We have a publicist on this film, so I don't have to pursue it in that way. So you guys probably have a lot more knowledge about how to pursue it individually. But I really like what you're saying about just using those moments and being honest and being vulnerable and being specific. And I don't know, it's scary and it's totally against my personality type, basically. But you got to do it. And when you're there, again, like they want to connect with you. Right. Everybody wants to connect with everybody else. You don't both want to have an awkward experience. You're not like, we got up at 10:30 at the Omni Hotel so we could have an awkward experience together. I hope to connect with another human. Is it like?
And this is the best time to say we're at facebook.com/lovefilm. LOEV film.
You're terrible at this.
I also got on Instagram 2 days ago. I'm literally figuring out what it is, why I need it. Because I'm like, can't I just tweet the pictures? So why do I need this Instagram? They're like, no. It's like a visual calendar. I'm like,
visual calendar?
We are out of time, but I want to give you guys an opportunity one more time, remind everyone when your next screenings are, and the name of the film, too.
So the film's called Love, L-O-E-V. It's screening at the Alamo Lamar D today at 7:30. I'll make sure you get in. Please come. It's not going to be a screening where there are long lines and a lot of demand. I know this. Don't try to say it. Yeah, don't even. Please. I think you'll be surprised. It's the perfect South by film. It's an audience kind of film. So it's at 7:30 today. And if you come and you stop me before or after, I promise to spend whatever time you need in order to talk about your films and figure out how to help. Because I'm here till the end of the week. I've got nothing to do. And when you ask me questions, it makes me feel good about myself. I'm looking for approval and self-esteem. So this is A+.
So opaque.
I love it. You are a transparent gentleman.
And cookies.
And cookies. Our next screening is Tuesday, March 15th at the Alamo Ritz, which is right by 6th Street at 9:45. We have another screening Thursday at the satellite venue, the Marchesa, at 2:45. So it's called Nine Rides. Check it out.
And our film is called Operator, and we have a screening tonight at 9:15 at the Alamo Slaughter, and Tuesday night, 9:15 at the Lamar, and Saturday, somewhere at some time.
Okay, guys, thanks so much for coming and talking to us, and thank you all for being here. And go see their movies.
Thank you.